Welcome back to our series Lost and Found, where we're talking about things that get lost and found again. For the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about losing stuffed animals, getting ourselves lost, and finding weird things in the Lost and Found section. But have you ever thrown something away that you later regretted? Sometimes we throw something away because we think we'll never need it again, but other times we throw things away by accident. When I was in middle school, I did something that really upset my mom, and I don't even remember what it was. But while she was yelling at me, one of the things she told me I needed to do was to clean up my room. Now understand that my dad was the yeller, not my mom. So when I got her to the point of yelling, I knew I had gone way too far. So I cleaned up as quickly and as thoroughly as I could possibly manage. The problem? I ended up accidentally throwing away an 8-page paper I had written for my English class that was worth like 40% of my final grade. Oh, that's no big deal, just print it again, right? No. This was before everyone had a home computer. It was handwritten, and because it was my final draft, I had already gotten rid of the others. Not cool. Some stories about losing things can be funny, but not always. Sometimes we lose things that are valuable. Maybe you lost something that was really sentimental. Maybe you broke something that didn't belong to you. Or maybe you misplaced something and knew it was going to get you into trouble. It's difficult to lose something that really matters to you, but it's even worse when you know it's your fault it's gone. You might feel sadness, guilt, embarrassment, anger, or maybe even shame. You might try to keep it a secret because you're afraid of what others will say. Or maybe you just try to move on because remembering what you lost is too upsetting. Now, over the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about things that are lost and how they get found again. Specifically, we've been talking about what we do when we feel a little lost. Now, sometimes we feel lost because we don't feel noticed or seen, or we don't feel valuable, or we know we've messed up and we're not sure how to fix it. Today, we're going to hear a story of a young man who lost everything because of his mistakes, and how we're sometimes a lot like him. Have you ever made a choice that caused you to feel distant from God or others? Maybe you did something to create distance between you and someone you love. Maybe you feel distant from God, either because of your choices or because you've never really been close to Him before. Or maybe you made a mistake that ruined everything and you wish things would just go back to how they used to be. Throughout this series, we're looking at one chapter of the Bible, just one. This chapter recounts a series of stories Jesus once told about things that were lost and then found. Each story communicates a different and important truth. Now, these stories aren't historical stories, they're parables, stories that Jesus made up and told in order to teach an important truth. He told these stories to the Pharisees. Those were the religious leaders who had become arrogant, self-righteous, and dismissive of people who they believed were sinful. He told this series of stories to help the Pharisees understand just how wrong they were about themselves, others, and God. First, Jesus told a story about a lost sheep to show the Pharisees that God isn't angry or judgmental when we wander away. Instead, God finds us and carries us lovingly back to safety. Next, Jesus told a story about a woman and her lost coin to show the Pharisees that God doesn't give up on us when we wander away. Instead, God values and keeps looking for us. Let's see what Jesus is trying to communicate with this third story. He also said, "A man had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, 'Father, give me the share of the estate I have coming to me.' So he distributed the assets to them. Not many days later, the younger son gathered together all he had and traveled to a distant country, where he squandered his estate in foolish living. After he had spent everything, a severe famine struck that country, and he had nothing. Then he went to work for one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into his fields to feed pigs. He longed to eat his fill from the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one would give him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, 'How many of my father's hired workers have more than enough food, and here I am dying of hunger? I'll get up, go to my father, and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired workers.'" Now, I think we can probably all find some things we have in common with this son. He was impulsive. He made a big decision, apparently without getting any guidance or wisdom from others. He was hurtful. He may not have meant it this way, but his actions and words hurt his dad. By asking for his inheritance early, it's like he was saying, "Dad, you're worth more to me dead than alive. Give me that money so that I don't have to depend on you or have a relationship with you anymore." And he was selfish. By not stopping to reflect on how his actions might be hurtful to his family, the son was acting selfishly. He cared only about his money and his big adventure, not the people who loved him. Now, even though the son had safety, food, and money at home, he was dreaming of going to this distant land where he imagined he could do whatever he wanted to do, spend his money and have fun, and find everything he thought he was missing at home. For a while, the son lived the kind of life he dreamed about, until he couldn't anymore. The famine came, people lost jobs, he struggled to find food, he worked for a pig farmer, and he ate whatever the pigs ate. Now here's what we miss if we don't try to stop to understand the context of this story. Remember, Jesus was telling the story to the Pharisees. These religious leaders saw pigs as unclean animals, forbidden by God. In order to follow and be loved by God, they believed you couldn't eat any pork. When the son in this story ate with the pigs, the Pharisees would have seen this as a sin against God. While you might feel compassion for the son in this story, the Pharisees would likely have felt disgust. Of course, the son in this story never existed, but if he had, I think we can assume he would have been pretty broken at this point. He had thrown away everything that had been good in his life. He'd lost his family, his money, his livelihood, and maybe even his faith. Because of his own bad decisions, he found himself disconnected from others and from God. He was probably filled with shame for what he had done and fear about what he needed to do next. Desperate, he decided to go home, not as a son, but hoping to become a servant in his father's house. So he got up and went to his father. But while the son was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. He ran, threw his arms around his neck, and kissed him. The son said to him, "Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son." But the father told his servants, "Quick, bring out the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Then bring the fattened calf and slaughter it, and let's celebrate with a feast, because this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." So they began to celebrate. What a response! Can you imagine being welcomed home like this? After wasting his money, disgracing his father, and bringing shame on himself and his family, his father is still filled with love and compassion for him. The father runs to his son to hug and kiss him. A hug isn't the only thing this father gave his son. He also gave him gifts: a robe, ring, and sandals. But these weren't just any gifts. These gifts signified that the father was accepting his son back into the family. The father didn't just allow the son to move back home, he forgave him completely. He welcomed him home. Remember, Jesus told this story to help us discover something important about who God is and what God is calling us to do. Years after Jesus told this story, the Apostle Paul wrote a letter that captures the same idea Jesus was trying to communicate here. "Therefore, every one of you who judges is without excuse. For when you judge another, you condemn yourself, since you, the judge, do the same things. Now we know that God's judgment on those who do such things is based on the truth. Do you think, any one of you who judges those who do such things, yet do the same, that you will escape God's judgment? Or do you despise the riches of his kindness, restraint, and patience, not recognizing that God's kindness is intended to lead you to repentance?" Like the father in Jesus' parable, God is so kind, loving, and patient with us. God isn't an angry old man waiting to throw lightning bolts at us when we mess up and wander away. God is like a loving father, always ready to welcome us home. And Jesus is God. So when you've made decisions or mistakes that have led you far from God, I hope you'll remember what the son in this story discovered about his father. When you feel lost, Jesus welcomes you back. So what about you? Have you ever felt disconnected from God because of your choices or mistakes? Do you feel that way right now? Or maybe you've never felt connected with God in the first place. Are you not sure how to connect or reconnect with God? Or are you not sure that God would even want you back or cares that you've been gone? If you can relate, I hope you remember the story of this son. Just like his loving father, God always welcomes you back home, whether it's for the first time or the 100th time. I wonder if one of the reasons it's hard for us to believe that Jesus always welcomes us back is because Jesus' followers aren't always welcoming when someone has made mistakes or wandered from God. I wonder, what makes a place feel welcoming? Is your church welcoming? Your youth group? Your school? Your family? If not, what can they do to be more so? And what can you do to make those places more welcoming? Just like Jesus was angry with the Pharisees for being judgmental toward others, I wonder if there are steps we need to take to make it easier for people to come back to God after they've wandered away. You know how much you need to know that Jesus always welcomes you back? You have the ability to help others know that they're welcome too. And at the very least, you have the ability to help others not question whether or not God will welcome them back because of the way you treat them. When you find yourself not being welcoming to someone who has wandered from God, I hope you'll remember this truth that Jesus shared with the Pharisees, that the people we fail to welcome are the people He welcomes with open arms. Just like the son in this story, we've all hurt and wandered far from God, even you. But no matter how far we've wandered, God still welcomes us back. Just like the story of the wandering son ended in celebration, take some time to celebrate the way God always welcomes us back. Maybe put on some worship music and talk to God about how you can come back home or how you can help someone else find their way back. I hope you let the welcoming heart of Jesus change you so deeply that you begin to welcome others back, just like Jesus always welcomes you. Like the father in this story, Jesus welcomes you back, and He always will.